Okay, let's begin. Welcome, everyone. My name is Patrick. I'm very, very happy to welcome you again to another live stream. I feel like I'm becoming a YouTuber or ex-live streamer or something like that recently, but it's a lot of fun because we always have really great guests. And today we have a very special guest, actually. So, as you all might have seen, we're organizing the Cardano Hackathon 2024 in Berlin. So, NMaker is organizing that. We're doing this with Catalyst funding and also help with amazing sponsors. And one of those sponsors is Midnight, Cardano's partner chain, right? Also built by IOHK. And there's a lot of stuff to learn about Midnight. I'm also not an expert yet, but they have decided to sponsor the Cardano Hackathon. So they are coming to Berlin. They will be there in person as well. And hopefully many people can dabble in Midnight, learn more about it, and see like how it's interoperable with Cardano as well, and what you can do on Midnight that you maybe cannot do on Cardano. And we have a guest here who is going to explain all of this, all of these advantages in much more detail. So I'm going to bring him up on stage. Welcome, Diego. How are you today?
Hello, Patrick. Well, thank you for having me here, and also thank you for inviting us to the Hackathon in Berlin. Really looking forward to, to be there with a lot of members of my team, and to have the chance to connect with the developer community.
Yeah, super awesome to have you. I'm really excited. It's only a few more days actually. So finally, we're like in the last final stretches, and I can feel the stress in the team, everyone preparing for the hackathon and so on. But it will be a good event. So very excited to have you there. So Diego, maybe before we go into Midnight and all this crypto stuff, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like, how did you get into tech? What did you do all your life? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am the lead in the developer relations team at Midnight. So that means that I get the chance to talk a lot with the community, which I really love. And in terms of kind of like general background, I started as a developer, kind of like, Web 2 many years ago. That I had the chance a little bit later in my career to move to developer relations, which is great because that gives me the chance to promote different technologies, to learn different technologies every single time, and also to learn from developers. One of the things that I really like the most when I go to conferences or like hackathons that we're going to have is to actually ask developers like, hey, what is it that you're building? Because many times inside of like different companies, we have an idea of what people can build, but then when you go and actually talk with developers, they're building such crazy projects, like so many things that you're like, oh, I didn't know that we could even do that. So I've been doing that for the last 11 years, and now I am currently with Midnight, and we're building this team that is really looking forward to just connect more and more with the developer community.
I think that's a perfect segue. So you came in through basically developer relationships. So what is your official role at the moment at Midnight? Again.
Well, it is that lead
Oh,
developer, lead of developer relations. Literally, that is the thing. So we have the fortune that Midnight does understand that there are some technologies like Midnight that require a strong involvement with developers. So many times, developer relations in some companies is just an engineer that is sometimes doing some educational content or going to a conference. No, we do have a team literally on Monday, we're going to be 4 people just kind of building documentation, working with Discord for with our own developer community, and in general trying to lead many events that we're going to have for the rest of the year.
mhm. That makes a lot of sense because of course a blockchain is only as good as its community and all the developers that are building products for the community, right? So you really stand and fall with it. It's the most important part by far. So we all in the Cardano space, we all know Midnight. We know, okay, it's a partner chain, but we don't really understand why it exists and what it can do that Cardano can't do, and so on. So maybe give us a quick rundown of what you think, what Midnight's role in the blockchain ecosystem is.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, Midnight started as a project instead of IO, and the entire point was kind of data protection. So if you want to just to kind of say like Midnight is a data protection blockchain and is designed to safeguard user data while focusing on security, compliance, and developer experience. So if you want to kind of just like the simplified version of that is Midnight is focused on giving developers and builders and also administrators the ability to decide which data goes on chain and which data goes off chain. And that is incredibly important because like that helps with many companies, you know, like especially but it could be almost any app, just to kind of like decide what kind of like data is going to kind of like be showcased. And that is a problem that many organizations do have, you know. So sometimes like some businesses can't use a blockchain because like everything there, well, it's public, and then they don't want to do that. And then in other cases, some of these organizations need to kind of like also cannot use privacy chains because then you have some regulatory concerns. So that's where Midnight comes in. Is like the entire point of Midnight is to allow developers to decide that. It's like, hey, these are some things that you want to share with the entire world, and it's going to be off chain. And then these are some other pieces of my data that I don't want to share with anyone, and they are going to kind of like live in well, the developer or the organization's machines.
Okay, so to summarize, basically the core of Midnight is data protection and giving the developers and giving the organizations that are using Midnight the option to say, okay, I want to have this public and this other part I want to have private, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. I think that's kind of like the best summary, and that is something that we take quite seriously, and that's kind of like something that well we're kind of building right now. So that is something that perhaps I should have said from the very beginning. Currently, Midnight is in DevNet. Of
Mhm.
course, like in the near future, we're going to move to testnet, and after that mainnet. But like right now, and that is one of the main reasons. I know that you're going to ask me, but one of the main reasons why we want to have this type of events is because we want to invite all developers to participate in the community and to give us more feedback on how we're going to implement all these incredible ideas that we have.
Mhm. So before we go into the hackathon, maybe a few more questions as like a developer
Sure.
myself. So what, like, when I think about data privacy and private blockchains, I always think about Monero, for example. That's like the biggest privacy chain, I think. And the question that I'm asking myself is, okay, are transactions on Midnight even public, or can they also be completely private? Where is like the point where it ends, you know?
Yeah, I think kind of like the most important distinction that we have to make is that while you're kind of like, well, you can decide pretty much kind of like, hey, I'm going to just say I'm going to submit all these data and it's going to be on chain, and then
Mhm.
that's going to be public. But then if you decide that part of that is not going to do that, really the transaction is not going to include the data that is going to be in your machine, and what you're going to submit in the transaction is going to be a proof. So like that's where the ZK proof is going to be sent. So again, you can prove that you have that data, that you can obviously well keep it in yours, but you're not really sending it. So it's not even leaving your device, whatever you're currently running your DApp. And that is really important, and we're kind of like trying to showcase in some of our example dApps, because then you can say like a good example could be I'm thinking health data. You could say like, hey, one important issue is like this patient may have this disease, and then you can send that information and say like, hey, X disease needs to be treated, but you don't want to share the personal data of that specific like patient, you know, because well, and especially here in the US, you're going to see kind of like a lot of regulations in terms of like what kind of things can be shared with external like organizations. So instead of like sending all the data, you're just going to say like, look, I'm going to keep it safe, secure in my system, and I'm just going to send the proof that I have the data, and then like that is what it is. So, and that is pretty much kind of like the general idea of how you are going to make certain that that data is going to be safe.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So you mentioned proofs. So basically, Midnight is built upon CK proofs, right?
Yeah, correct. So like Midnight uses zero knowledge, so ZK technology, and CK pretty much allows one party to prove to another that a certain statement or claim is true without revealing all the evidence for the proof. So with the CK proofs, we're kind of like addressing the secure data protection and all the of course,
It's a difficult word.
interoperability concerns. That's happens when I begin to talk too fast. And right now
Okay.
we're using CK snarks,
Mhm.
and which obviously, well, you may know or may not know, depending on how knowledgeable you are about like this topic. But it's kind of like highly efficient form of CK proof that enables secure transactions without revealing the identities of the transaction parties or transaction details. So. And well, obviously, I don't want to kind of like just make the entire conversation about that, but that is something that we are trying to explain as in detail as we can in our documentation, and that is one of those things that we are also kind of like having as our goals in general, like with the documentation, with our examples, to educate a little bit the Web3 and Web2 community about, because we have we do know that there are like a lot of Web2 people that are curious about like zero knowledge and about Web3, but they don't know where to start. And sometimes all these things are kind of like a bunch of terms that
Yeah.
appear, disappear, but it's like, how do I use it? How does it really affect me? Or kind of like I can use it in my dApp. So that's kind of like a big focus for our organization right now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're completely right there. Even as someone who has spent like the last 3 years full time in crypto, there are so many buzzwords. There's so many topics that come up that you really need to understand, like CK snarks, CK rollups, all this kind of stuff. There's so many like vague differences, so it's difficult to get into. And I assume, to go to our next question, I assume that's part of the reason why you're planning to attend more events in physical and you want to educate, and why you are coming, of course, to the Cardano Hackathon in Berlin. Please sign up now.
Yes.
So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your strategy there.
Yes. So, like I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, I'm really glad that Midnight understands the role of developers. If we don't have developers creating dApps, if we don't have developers giving us feedback on the documentation, on the working experience, then we are not really going to know how Midnight is going to be really implemented in the different apps. So we're trying to go, well, first, like a Berlin, and kind of like connecting with the Cardano community precisely to increase that collaboration and to get a lot of feedback. That's something that quite likely all the participants, they're going to get tired of me at by the end of the hackathon. Is like, hey, what do you think? Tell me more. And we're focused or we're interested not just in finding good feedback, because a lot of people try to be nice and like, oh, it's awesome. No, we also want to find like, what is it that we're missing? What kind of like examples are we kind of like people are interested in, like what kind of things are not really like clear, and like we mentioned already, education. Sometimes when you are already in the Web3 world, you assume that a lot of people understand one concept or another, and then it turns out like, yep, I didn't know. For example, right now, one of the big parts that you do with Midnight onboarding is that your proof server kind of like is inside of a Docker image. And some developers actually had not, or our own developers, I mean, in the developer community, didn't have experience with Docker. So they were kind of like, I understand everything that you're telling me, but I don't know how to get started with Docker. How do I get the image? Like, what is an image? So
There's so many technologies. It's like you cannot understand everything. And I mean, Docker, of course, very, very basic, but there's so much stuff nowadays that it's like you cannot keep up. It's impossible. So even in
yeah,
the Web2
absolutely.
camp.
And the last thing that I wanted to say about that is that even after Maker, after the hackathon, we are going to start, I think mid-August, we're going to obviously share with all your community too, a series of hackathons. So some in person, some online, and that would give us the chance to kind of connect all over the world with developers that are interested in learning more and kind of like testing, playing a little bit around, and giving us some feedback.
I think that's wonderful. And, I'll be fully honest. I've been in Cardano for a very long time now, and I can tell you one of the big, big problems that Cardano had is that, IOG, the development company of the initial Cardano stack, was very disconnected from what the developers actually want and need. The documentation sucked for years. It still isn't that great. It's getting there, but it's not perfect yet. and there were many things developed where, in the end, it turned out no one is using them. Like, Marlow, no one is using Marlow, or Pluto's PAB, no one is using that. Everyone built their own stuff. So I think it's great. I think it's great that you're going out there, you're actually talking to the users, to the developers that will be using your platform, and you're figuring out what they need, right? And that's exactly what should be happening. And it also makes sense. It's the second blockchain that is coming from Charles' mind, I guess, and from IOG. And there's a lot of things you can do better with the second time. So I think it's a very, very good approach.
Yeah, and like if you let me add something there, a lot of the decisions that we have made as a company were quite focused on that. So, for example, when you are creating dApps for Midnight, you're going to be using TypeScript. So, almost anyone that has experience with JavaScript, specifically TypeScript, but even with just like vanilla JavaScript, you have a pretty good idea of how to get started. And we have a language specific for smart contracts that is called Compact. And it is quite similar to TypeScript, and we're even working on changing it a little bit to make it even more similar to TypeScript. So not just to kind of like welcome everyone in the Web3 space, but like I said, like anyone in the Web2, just come in and it's like, this sounds similar to a web app that I've created before. Let me get started much faster instead of like having to learn a new set of rules. Already, all the terms and all the technologies are already hard enough for us to make it harder. So that is kind of like one of our guiding principles. And like you said, we're kind of like finding it really hard to be connected with the community, to try to get their feedback and to implement it. It's not just listening, but what is it that we do with that? So yeah.
Wonderful. No, as I said, that's perfect. Can you maybe give me a few like features or special use cases that you think Midnight can solve for businesses, right? Why as a new business or as a new developer should I say, okay, I'm gonna build on Midnight now instead of all the other chains out there?
Yeah. So, well, I already mentioned one that is kind of like familiarity for developers. So then they can get started much faster and start producing like their own dApps much faster. Then the other one is pretty much kind of like all the CK snarks efficiently like, able to secure the transactions that you're going to kind of like have there. And then Midnight allows like the dApps to validate the user data without sharing it, which I think I already mentioned a little bit before. And that protects users' identity or any data that they want to protect. And then the like users are going to kind of like have assurance that the data is not going to be tampered with. And now in terms of kind of like use cases, we are kind of like curious to find out, especially at the hackathon, what is it that people are interested. But I can tell you some that kind of keep repeating, like they keep appearing every single time that we talk with developers. So one is identity verification. We're kind of like working with some partners precisely to kind of like offer like a better solution there. But also, and this obviously is going to be quite interested perhaps for a maker, that is they control access to tokenized digital assets. So like data protection can enable tokenized assets to remain private. So at the same time, the necessary information can be revealed to conduct related activities. So with zero knowledge, customers can share their credentials, points, or membership details with third parties without kind of passing any sensitive information. And I think last one, well, I already mentioned kind of like health. That is something that almost every single time that we as developers, and like a couple of months ago, we had like a small participation in another hackathon. And then like healthcare is one of these ones that kind of keeps popping up. And it's not just to protect the information or the data from users, clients, patients, but also even protect the information of even doctors and anyone that is part of the healthcare system. And the last one that I'm going to mention that kind of like keeps popping up is decentralized credit scoring. So as you may imagine, like a lot of people want to be able to do things with their credit score, but without really kind of like sharing their personal information.
That's the decentralized credit score is a very, very good example, I think, because there yeah, it makes total sense. Essentially, you don't want to share it, but you still want to use it in DeFi. You want to go to a lending platform and be able to just connect your identity to it, but maybe not, make everything public, and still be able to get like a loan or something, and based on actual serious criteria, which could be stored in a like more private way. And I liked what you mentioned with the NFTs, because we have these amazing projects on Cardano, Book.io, Stuff.io, Newcast, which all essentially do token gating for content, right? So I imagine there would be a way for us to take data and essentially create a more decentralized token gate, where we say, okay, if you have this NFT, you get access to a hidden component somewhere, or a hidden secret key or so, in this like private layer, and then you can encrypt some video or some book or some music file or so. So it makes it a lot more easy to interact with that, and a lot more decentralized. I'm very excited, and I'm very happy to learn more. Maybe we're already at the 23 minutes mark, so maybe one more question to wrap it up. How do you personally, but also maybe from an official Midnight standpoint, I don't know if there's like a difference there, but how
Yeah.
do you envision the future of Web3? What will happen?
Yeah, I think I cannot say that this is the official one, but I kind of like know that a lot of people inside of the company have a similar idea, and is to have blockchain working pretty much in a ubiquitous manner. So, like a user will be connecting to a system without even knowing that they're interacting with a blockchain. So, really, that would be kind of like the future of mass adoption for blockchain should look like. So, but then to be able to get there, we have to come and like solve a lot of like friction problems, and obviously in the case of Midnight, we're trying to solve that data protection problem that you may find in different use cases. But this is not just kind of like something that Midnight is going to have to kind of like improve, but pretty much almost any chain. Right now, it's if you kind of like bring someone that has no experience with developing, that has no experience with like decentralized systems, and you tell them to interact, just kind of like explaining the concept of how a wallet works would be really hard. Like I usually kind of like use my family members as an example, and I know that I would have a hard time for them to understand it, and even step forward would be even for them to use it. So just having like the chance to integrate, to have more use cases where that friction through usage, through experience is kind of like disappears, that's going to give us the option to kind of like provide solutions for big organizations, financial organizations, gaming, like all kinds of use cases where like the users are going to just think like, oh, this is an app. For them, it's not going to be any difference between a decentralized app, so a dApp or a regular app. It's just like, hey, I just like this. I'm going to play, or I'm going to submit money, or I'm going to, I don't know, deal with my information, and then they don't know what is happening in the background. So I think that's something that we kind of like as an industry should kind of work towards. And I'm certain that a lot of people would kind of like agree in the general sense that that would be kind of like a big ideal for Web3.
That's a wonderful answer. I can't really add much more to that. I think you phrased it perfectly. So yeah, I think we're already at the end. It went very quickly. It was very interesting talking to you. I'm extremely excited to welcome you to the actual hackathon soon in Berlin, and I'm very excited to see a lot of people there. At the moment, we have around 100 signups, but I think we could easily double that, especially in those last few days, because we have a lot more announcements coming and partnerships. And the goal is really to bring in people from maybe not only Cardano, but also from the outer like crypto bubble in Berlin, to educate them about Midnight, educate them about Cardano, and educate about all the like different possibilities. So it's going to be a good event. Very excited.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the chance to read one comment that I see in the chat. That is, I'm just going to quote it here. I have an idea I would like to implement on midnight. I don't have a programming background, but understand the parties that would need to be involved for the most part. So PCM performance, one recommendation that I would have is that we conduct all our community work in our Discord server. So if you just go to midnight.network, you're going to find the links to our documentation and to our Discord server. And one thing that would be really important is if you have a good idea, we have several developers already that are looking for those ideas. So perhaps you can pair up there with some of our developers and you can do it or for the hackathon or in general to kind of like build a project that could be interesting. Like you said, we want to kind of like be as open, not just for people in the Web3 world, but pretty much anyone that has kind of like a data protection related idea to come and build something interesting with us.
I completely agree. And I can just emphasize on that. If you have good ideas, but you're not a developer and maybe you don't feel confident going to a hackathon, forget it. Come to the hackathon. It doesn't matter. You will always be able to do something, even if it's just ideating, talking to other people, making a cool concept. Everyone is welcome, and it will be a very fun environment for non-developers as well. So please sign up. Great. Then Diego, thank you so much for joining me and for talking so long with me about Midnight. I'm very excited, as I keep saying, and I hope you are too. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. We are really excited to keep working with Maker to go to this hackathon and to connect with every participant during the hackathon. So, yeah, thank you.